Welcome back to Worldwide Exchange. We want to continue our conversation with John McNeill, former Tesla president, General Motors board member, and founder of Vista Shares and DVX Ventures. John, thanks for staying with us. Got to talk a little Tesla, your former employer. I'm looking at the charts. Shares down more than 40% year to date. Earlier this week, Elon Musk admitting he's having a hard time running Doge and his companies. I mean, you work side by side with him. What do you make of some of this pressure on Tesla, and how do you see him responding when it comes to, first and foremost, I think his business for our audience? A lot of them are Tesla investors. We're seeing shares up over 2.5% right now.
Yeah, I think, I know Elon as the technologist and an engineer as we worked side by side at Tesla, and the way that he approaches problems is fairly unique. It's a process of innovation that is described by the algorithm. Walter Isaacson described this a little bit, but essentially the way he looks at these problems is to first question every requirement, and you see him doing this now in government, and we certainly did it at Tesla. And he's got teams now in China that are working hard at a low-cost version of the Model Y, where they're trying to take 20% of the production cost out, and that's typical Tesla, where you start and you question everything, and once you question everything down to the rivet, then you start to eliminate and delete. And you delete as much as you can, and then simplify and optimize. But oftentimes, we would find in that delete process that we went too far, and we'd have to go back and add critical things. But that discovery process is an ongoing process at Tesla. And I think, the team that is there is very, very strong, and I've got no doubt that they're going to come up with a lower cost vehicle that could be successful in China and maybe other parts of the world.
John, as you talk about that, delete and kind of add back process, seems to have some parallels to his work with Doge. So I want to go back to his own comments. He's having a hard time running his own company. So at what point does he delete what seems to be a very time-consuming side hustle of running Doge that also seems to be having impact on consumer demand and just the reaction to some of his vehicles? I mean, we've seen the things online about people, projecting things on cyber trucks or sometimes vandalizing Tesla vehicles. Knowing him as well as you do, and I know you say you know him as a technologist, at what point does he say, hey, my companies are more important than this?
I think, it's a great question, Frank, and quite frankly, I don't know the answer. But only he does. But I think as you look at the stock performance and the needs of the product portfolio, it's clear that any business in that situation needs direct hands-on leadership.
Tesla's also kind of signaled that tariffs are impacting their business as well. As you talk about the partnership with NVIDIA, how much of it is the idea that you're hoping to beat Tesla and every other company as well to widespread autonomous driving? And how does all this disruption when it comes to tariffs, also some of the battle over critical minerals, how does that play out in that competition?
I think, the race to autonomy is really a hardware and a software race. And those two components kind of swing back and forth in terms of which one is the constraint. And tariffs, quite frankly, don't have much to do with that. That's really pushing the throughput of the technology in terms of the hardware, what inference can be done on the car. And you hear Jensen talking about that we are at this inflection point in AI where most of the investment to date has gone into foundation model training and learning. And now that those foundation models are highly capable, now there's a shift to asking those models questions. And that's the inference piece of the puzzle. And so as that relates to autonomous driving on a car, that is, now that you've got a model that tells the car generally how to drive, then you want to ask it in specific situations, like, what do I do? There's a red light. There is a crosswalk here. There's an intersection. And all of those answers are coming out of the inference into those models. And that means that the car needs very, very high speed processing capabilities on the car. And at the same time, those high-speed processing capabilities have to be very low energy because you don't want to drain the range of the car in the case of an electric vehicle with all those calculations. So there's this really tough engineering constraint that some of the brightest engineers in the world are working on at GM, and that is how to balance the throughput of the inference and how to with the energy consumption of the chips and the hardware.